In 2007, my wife gave this to me in Iraq. This is Road Dog. I've had him. He's more of a war hero than 99% of the men on the planet. I met my wife. We were both soldiers. We were both privates in the military, and we both deployed to Iraq in 2006. We were there for 15 months. Can you imagine? You're 19 years old. You're a college dropout. You just finished basic training and advanced individual training, which is part of the military pipeline to become the engineer that you signed up to be. And then you ship out to go to Iraq at 19 years old. 3-4 weeks later, you turn 20 years old. You go through Thanksgiving, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the following year, Easter. You go through summer. You turn 21. You're still in Iraq. Another Halloween and another Thanksgiving. And then you come home. Can you imagine what that experience is like? 15 months in Iraq, turning 20 and 21 years old. Can you imagine what it's like to be overseas before you could really have the internet over there and Wi-Fi, before, when you had to use a calling card to call back home? We used to have to go inside of these call centers. They were wooden sheds, and we would be allotted 20 minutes to make a phone call and call back home. Hopefully the person answered, because if they didn't, you would just go down your list and try to call anybody that would answer so you could make the most of that 20 minutes. That's what my life was at 19, 20, and 21 years old. The military, there's a lot of hard times, but there were some really good times. And the hard times actually were the good times. You guys, in this video, I want to share with you some of the lessons that I learned about life while in the military. I had a text message from a guy the other day, one of my clients. He's an entrepreneur. He's trying to build the best him. He wants to be confident. He wants to feel good about himself. He wants to really go after life. And me and him meet bi-weekly. And he messaged me. And he said, did you ever, or do you ever have moments where you feel like you just haven't had enough hardship? And I read the message, and at first I didn't instantly relate. But I realized what he was talking about was the truth was that he was feeling called to do something difficult with his life. And that I could relate to. You see, hardship has been in my life ever since I was a kid. I was raised in Northern California in a town of like 300 people, and I used to hunt and fish with my dad all the time. Matter of fact, I was on a bear hunt at 14 years old, and I almost had a bear damn near take my life. That's a story for another time, but I spent a lot of time in the woods in hardship. And then I was a wrestler in high school, and that was very difficult. I've got 3 brothers, one of which has Down syndrome. My parents come from humble upbringings, and they bootstrapped their success just like I've bootstrapped mine. So hardship has always been a part of my life, and when I got into the military, life continued to throw hardship at me, especially when I got to Iraq at 19 years old. When you're in overseas and you don't have any distractions, you have a lot of time to think about what's important to you. I think that one of the biggest thieves of our dreams in life are the distractions that surround us. Like your dream, the one that you want to go after, one of the main reasons why you don't think about it enough is because you're distracted by everything else that's pulling your attention. And when I went to Iraq, I was a basic soldier. I was an engineer. Before I was an infantry officer, before I was a ranger, I was on the support side of the military, just existing. I wasn't really going after it. I joined the military because I wanted to change my life. I wasn't like a strong patriot. I didn't really want the GI Bill. I just wanted to change my life because I wasn't happy with it. So that dissatisfaction caused me to sign up, and I joined. And so there I was in Iraq for 15 months. A few months in, I'm driving. I used to drive a lot overseas. I used to drive an LMTV. It was a big truck. It had a steering wheel kind of like this. And as an engineer, that's what we drove because it had the pickup, it had the truck bed to put our gear in. And we did different types of missions. You know, we used to repair the roads after a bomb exploded and blew out the road. My team would go in there, put together a design and help repair it. And we would jump in with other units and travel from one FOB to another. So I went to a lot of different forward operating bases in Iraq. Sometimes we jumped in with units that were transporting prisoners of war. They had insurgents chained up, handcuffed, and we would be part of that convoy. So my experience overseas, I had a pretty wide range of experience. And after that 15 months, I was driving down the road on one of these convoys, and an IED went off. The vehicle in front of me exploded. I was 20 years old. And I remember just having complete tunnel vision. The vehicle was probably 25 or 50 meters in front of me, and it goes up in smoke. Instantly, I started thinking, oh shit, what's next? I'm trying to remember what my steps are at what I'm supposed to do as the driver. So we had rehearsed this scenario before, so I started following the steps. Told myself not to swerve off the road. Told myself to go through the smoke, regardless of how scary it was. I listened for my leader's command. I heard the call come over the radio, and they told us to herringbone, so we herringboned. We quarantined off the truck that had been exploded, the truck that had exploded, and we basically put our vehicles all around the vehicle that had exploded, pulled security, and got the wounded out and evacuated the scene. We weren't attacked after that. That was my first exposure to combat. I was a victim to combat, essentially. I wasn't really on the offensive. I was just doing my duty, driving. And sometime later, I'm not on the mission, but another convoy in our unit gets hit by a similar bomb. This time it killed one. So I'm 20 years old, and now somebody in our unit had died. The deployment continues on, and I'm doing some work, and I'm setting up a patrol base in the middle of this city called Baquba, Iraq. The 82nd Airborne were going through this village, and they were doing a clearance. And my team was coming in and putting in this patrol base. as I was laying there, we had finished putting in the patrol base, and it was late at night, and I was looking up at the stars, sweat coming from my brow. I laid down in between some T walls and some jersey barriers, some concrete barriers to keep myself protected. I laid down there and I'm looking up at the stars, and I got my helmet on, I got my body armor on. I'm wearing the old tan uniform there, the gray uniform. ACUs. The digital pattern. I'm wearing that. I'm laying there. I hear the gunfight going on about a mile from my location. And I remember thinking about all the other friendlies in our unit that had hit roadside bombs, got concussed. I was thinking about the young officer in our unit that got killed by the roadside bomb not too long before that mission that I was on. I was thinking about being in Iraq for 15 months. I was thinking about the value of life. When I was in Iraq for 15 months, I had a lot of time to think about the value of life. And when that gunfight was going on, when the 82nd Airborne were clearing that village, I had an aha moment. I had an epiphany. I had a realization that I wasn't really going after what was in my heart. I had a realization that, well, I realized how fragile life was, that I had some close calls. I had almost gotten killed, that the one vehicle in front of me, it exploded, and nobody died, but what if that would have hit my vehicle? What if it would have hit differently? I could have been killed that day versus simply being the vehicle behind the one that got destroyed. And so I reflected a lot on life. And I realized in that moment when I'm laying there in that city outside of Bakuba, Iraq, that I didn't want to be on the defensive anymore. I realized I wanted to be on the offensive. I had realized that after I joined the military, I joined the military because I was sick and tired of the way that I was living. You know, I was going to a community college and I was drinking during the day. I had been a failed athlete. I'd want to be an elite level athlete in high school, and that didn't work out for me. So when I didn't become that athlete, I just fell into what everybody else was doing. And anyways, I realized that during that deployment that I had really given up on myself and given up on life. And then on that deployment, I realized how fragile life was. And that giving up on life is the ultimate failure. And so while the 82nd was going and clearing this village, I had a warrior's call hit me. You guys have a warrior's call in your life right now. There is something inside of you that is telling you to do something different with your life. There is a dream you want to chase. There is a person you want to become. I made a decision that night, staring up at the stars, that I was going to go back to school and finish what I started. That I was going to become, and I was going to push myself. I was going to become the best version of me, a new version of me. I told myself I was going to go after my dream. I felt called to be part of the fight. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to be an engineer anymore. I'm going to become an officer. And I'm going to be part of that fight one day. And that changed my path tremendously. The amount of peace that I found when I decided to pursue my dream was incredible. Even though I was still in Iraq, and there was really not much that changed in my life, I found peace, clarity, and happiness the moment I decided to chase after a new dream, to recommit myself to life and go after what I really wanted. If you guys are miserable right now, if you feel like there's something calling you, I challenge you to chase after it. Because what the military taught me about life and success, it taught me that life is meant to be conquered. It taught me that life is fragile and we should always go after what we want. Road Dog right here. He's been with me since that deployment. I met my wife shortly after, in that period where I made the decision to chase my dream. And she's watched the whole thing turn into reality. She's watched me go from enlisted soldier to infantry officer to ranger to infantry commander to entrepreneur. And I'm very blessed for our relationship because I have somebody that I can share it with. Because what I learned in Iraq, when I came back after 15 months, a lot had happened. I spent Thanksgiving over there, Christmas over there, multiple Thanksgivings, multiple birthdays. And when I got back to the States, I realized that the world didn't give a shit that I was in Iraq. The world didn't stop moving because I was in Iraq. It didn't pause anything. And so the old friends that I had, the family members that I had, everybody that I knew before I left for the military, before I left for that deployment, they kept living their lives, which they were supposed to. But when I came back, they had all these stories to tell about the holidays and what had been going on in the country, and they had all these shared experiences. And when I got back from Iraq, I couldn't relate to any of them. I felt like the world just kept moving and kept evolving, and they left me behind. And so when I got back from Iraq, I realized that the world isn't going to stop for you. The world doesn't care about your life. The world isn't going to cater to your needs. In order to get the most out of life, you have to create what you want from life. The world is going to move and it's going to evolve. Are you going to move and evolve with it? Iraq taught me a lot about life. The military taught me a lot about life. But that deployment, the main things that it taught me that you guys, you don't have to deploy to learn, is that life is fragile. None of us are getting out of this world alive. And we will all find a lot more happiness if we go after what is in our heart. So if you're craving hardship, if you're craving challenge, if you're craving becoming a better version of you, follow that feeling. Because the world's not going to wait for you. And life gets 10 times, 100 times better when you pursue what's in your heart. As we close off this video today, guys, again, I promise you that I'll keep doing more of these and help you with all types of things, with mindset, your success. I want to be a mentor for you online, somebody that you can come to and get advice from, inspiration from. Maybe you're going to have a bad day ahead and you just have that negative self-talk in your mind and you just need to clear that shit out, erase it, and you just pop on one of these videos and hear a cool story, something that can inspire you to really just go after it in life. Because that's what we need in this world. We need people that are going to choose to go after it. Iraq taught me a lot about life. The military taught me a lot about life. One of the biggest lessons that I ever learned is that something is meant for you when you find peace in pursuing it. Conquer all.